Gold is breaking price records faster than politicians break promises. Not just once, not twice, multiple all-time highs this year alone. Now look at the election chaos ahead. Markets bouncing like a pinball machine. Savings accounts are getting crushed by inflation. But gold writes its own story as usual. That's why savvy investors aren't waiting. They're moving to Noble Gold Investments now because timing isn't just important, it's everything. Think about it. While everyone else debates left or right, you could be choosing up. The writing's on the wall. Question is, are you reading it? Visit noblegoldinvestments.com today. Our experts will give you your options and you can take it from there. And if you sign up this month, you can get up to 10 1-ounce silver Trump coins or a 10-ounce silver American flag bar with a qualifying account. Some opportunities are too good to miss. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Thursday, November 21st, 2021, 24. Well, there you go. I just time traveled. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. That's the mantra for the Inspired live stream. 21, man, that's a long time ago. That's like 3 dimensions ago or something like that. It's crazy to think about it. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube. Comments going hot in the live chat. I love it. And I want to dive right into it, my friends. We are moving in our work with our wonderful audience. And then, of course, a lot of people who join us that are new, fairly new to us, or the subjects, and then the bots. And then the trolls, right? So there's an entire sphere, and we are moving through cycles. And what the cycle that we're currently in is, and I'm not talking about our core audience necessarily, but the cycle that we're currently moving through is a little more resistance. And I get it. We now have had basically 4 years, 5 years almost without a break, like 5 years of intensity all over the place. Now, some people have their individual experiences that are a little different, but in a collective experience, we've had this intensity going on for 5 years. And then for me to come on and sometimes add to that intensity because we simply need to really expose the truths of our time, I get it that can be challenging. But here's the thing. Nobody said it was easy, nor are we children who need to be cuddled and comforted every day and held by our hands. We simply need to stand as adults and face the things that we are facing as a collective, because that is the only way how we empower ourselves as individuals to make better choices. There is no other way. And so there are these things that are happening within the human psyche and within a lot of people that's called bypassing things, not wanting to see them, spiritual bypassing. And we're going to talk about that in depth today, but we can't really talk about it in a proper context if we don't understand how everything is pre-shown to us, okay? And what I mean by that is, if we're willing to see and open our eyes, if we have eyes to see and ears to hear, as our good friend Kathy O'Brien always says, we can actually see the truth. We're in this situation where a lot of events are still ahead of us that will not be pleasant for the human family, but a lot of people are not willing to look at them. And I always imagine how 2020 would have unfolded differently if we had foresight. If for some reason some people could have foreseen what was going to happen. Now, truth be told, we were foreseeing it. There were many of us who were talking about it long before it happened, but not just us. What if actually the big institutions who played the major roles during the pandemic had actually pre-shown us exactly what was going to happen? Well, they did. Of course they did. Let me show you. Remember this, Event 201? This all ties together. I'm going to explain it in a little bit. Event 201 was a high-level pandemic simulation exercise conducted on October 18th, 2019 in New York City. It was organized by the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The exercise simulated a fictional coronavirus outbreak to explore the global response to a severe pandemic. October 18th, 2019. The scenario was a novel zoonotic coronavirus spreads globally, leading to significant economic and societal disruption. They focused on preparedness, public-private collaboration, communication strategies, and mitigating misinformation during a pandemic. Participants were experts from various fields, including public health, government, business, and media. They down to a T, didn't just paint the picture of what the scenario was going to be like. They didn't just paint the picture about the supply chain issues and all of that. They specifically fully anticipated what the public's reaction was going to be, the mis and disinformation. They fully anticipated the role of social media. They anticipated the psychological effects it was going to have and how people were going to have to be manipulated fully. My point is that these people who've been studying the human psyche and human beings for such a long time, they know us better than most of us know ourselves in terms of our psychological triggers. I mean, you can love that, you can hate that, you can think that's not true, but most people do not know themselves. And that's why they keep reacting in the same ways, and that's why they keep experiencing the same things, and that's what we're going to talk about. But first, let's watch this little recap of Event 201 that happened on October 18th, 2019, months, or at least a month before the official talk of the novel coronavirus outbreak started. Let's watch this together.
Pandemic Emergency Board is to provide recommendations to deal with the major global challenges arising in response to an unfolding pandemic. The board is comprised of highly experienced leaders from business, public health, and civil society.
We could be looking at double the number of cases in 1 week and 16 times as many in a month if we are not able to stop the spread. That would be on the order of 500,000 cases, and it would continue to rise exponentially. In 3 months, we could be approaching 10 million cases.
We're at the start of what's looking like it will be a severe pandemic. And there are problems emerging that can only be solved by global business and governments working together.
We have known about caps-like viruses in animals and people for decades, but have not been successful at developing a licensed vaccine. And sure, there are new technologies that may help, but it's going to be difficult. I am not optimistic about having a vaccine in time to be relevant during this pandemic.
Public health agencies have issued travel advisories, while some countries have banned travel from the worst affected areas. As a result, the travel sector is taking a huge hit. Travel bookings are down 45%, and many flights have been canceled. A ripple effect is racing through the service sector. Governments that rely on travel and tourism as a large part of their economies are being hit particularly hard.
We are not out of money yet, but the fact is we are trending in a dangerous direction and something needs to change.
So the policy question for this board now is how should financial resources be prioritized? Are there nodes that we cannot allow to fail? What is your sense of priorities? We don't have money to pay for all of these urgent problems.
So at the moment, we want the funds, right? You need the money. So where's the money? So government kind of supplies some money. A lot of, private sectors, some are sitting here, you have some money. But now you need a really coordinated, centralized efforts.
Hotels will be experiencing, crippling losses doing that. And we know that the hotel business in itself makes up 5% of the GDP.
Governments need to be willing to do things that are out of their historical perspective, or for the most part, it's really a war footing that we need to be on.
Countries are reacting in different ways as to how best to manage the overwhelming amounts of dis and misinformation circulating over the internet. In some cases, limited internet shutdowns are being implemented to quell panic.
How much control of information should there be, and by whom? And how can false information be effectively challenged? And what if that false information is coming from companies or from governments?
I think it's very important that we make sure that there is concise communication with all healthcare facilities where these patients are being treated so that there isn't mass panic.
We're at a moment where the social media platforms have to step forward and recognize the moment to assert that they're a technology platform and not a broadcaster is over. They, in fact, have to be a participant in broadcasting accurate information and partnering with the scientific and health communities to counterweight, if not flood the zone of accurate information, because to put the genie back in the bottle of the misinformation and disinformation is nigh impossible.
One thing we haven't spoken about, and I'm wondering whether it's time to talk about this, is a step up from the part of the governments on enforcement actions against fake news.
I personally do not believe that trying to shut things down in terms of information is either practical or desirable. And we do have, I think, a couple of strategies that are available to us, one of which is the flood strategy, second of which is relying and informing and equipping trusted sources of information with the facts so they can then pass that on. But we also need to actually think about a technological answer to this.
The outcome of the CAPS pandemic in Event 201 was catastrophic. 65 million people died in the first 18 months. The outbreak was small at first and initially seemed controllable, but then it started spreading in densely crowded and impoverished neighborhoods of megacities. From that point on, the spread of the disease was explosive. Within 6 months, cases were occurring in nearly every country. The global economy was in a free fall. The GDP down 11%. Stock markets around the world plummeted between 20 and 40% and headed into a downward cycle of fear and low expectation. Businesses were not borrowing, banks were not lending. Everyone was just hoping to hunker down and weather the storm. Economists say the economic turmoil caused by such a pandemic will last for years, perhaps a decade. The societal impacts, the loss of faith in government, the distrust of news, and the breakdown of social cohesion could last even longer. We have to ask, did this need to be so bad? Are there things we could have done in the 5 to 10 years leading up to the pandemic that would have lessened the catastrophic consequences? We believe the answer is yes. So, are we as a global community now finally ready to do the hard work needed to prepare for the next pandemic?
This was October 18th, 2019. As you can see, they were very accurate in their prediction as to how this was going to unfold. It unfolded pretty much exactly this way. Now, what it unleashed ultimately was one of the greatest crimes against humanity, if not the greatest crime against humanity in human history. And here we are 5 years in. Nobody was really held accountable. No one has gone to jail. No one has been put on trial. There is no justice in this. There is not even a public justice campaign. There's nothing. What there is a moving on, even recycling some of the main figures of the previous catastrophe, recycling them again into this next era, and putting, for so many people, putting their false hope into another savior figure outside of them. And for the life of me, I can't understand how many more times we need to repeat the same cycles. What is it that people are doing? And this is why, by the way, this is why we are at times very, very unpopular in what we do. Because popular people tend to find the opponent, the enemy, the person or the people or the group or the company or the government who's responsible and keep pointing fingers. But if we don't point the fingers at ourselves as to, A, what are we allowing to happen? What are we not doing? Because it was beautifully said a long time ago, all that is required for evil to triumph is for good men, or now, if you want to say good people, good humans, to do nothing. And we are on this same path, a little better, but ultimately the same path when it comes to the subjects of this era, which, yes, there probably will be another health event. Yes, there probably will be a cyber event. But we're looking at the era of AI takeover, transhumanism, complete merger of human biology with technology, which is exactly what is happening. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest and loudest voices of the last 20, 25 years in the truther and freedom community warning against what was happening was Alex Jones, who just called Elon Musk a sensible transhumanist. A sensible transhumanist, which is this is the no, you can't make this shit up. This is the defeatist answer is there's nothing we can do about it now. Now it's living with it. Now it's coexisting. Now it's finding sensible ways with this. We are not facing, not even remotely in a way that we need to, the darkness that is staring us in the eye. And as real adults, as balanced and whole human beings, every other strategy leads to certain death. It's always been this way. This has never changed. It's not like, oh, we can just miraculously bypass all of this bullshit and ascend into 5D and never deal with these shadows. No, that's not how it works, my friends. I'm sorry, but this is not how it works. Let's move to this here. Spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing is the use of spiritual beliefs or practices to avoid facing unresolved emotional wounds, psychological challenges, or real-world problems. It often involves dismissing difficult emotions, minimizing struggles with spiritual platitudes like everything happens for a reason, or misapplying spiritual concepts to sidestep accountability or action. While it may seem positive or enlightened, spiritual bypassing can hinder true healing, growth, and the ability to engage authentically with life's complexities. True spirituality involves integrating emotional honesty, self-awareness, and compassion with spiritual principles. I told you all yesterday, if you were here, the real meaning in my mind, in my perception of deep state and shadow government. Let's talk about this just for a moment here. People think of the deep state as this collective group that is embedded into the government agencies, the bureaucracy, and the shadow government, unelected people and corporate interests and big finance and all those people controlling the levers of government. And that's not wrong at all, but it's not where it starts. A inverted practice cannot start without inverted consciousness. So what is the inverted consciousness? If we look at it from a psychological standpoint, from a spiritual psychological standpoint, the state that we are in, our aware state of being, like the state of mind that we're in, tells us how we feel at any given moment. You can say, I'm in a happy state of mind, or I'm in a sad state of mind, even state of heart, state of being. That is awareness. That is on the aware level. What is deeper in the subconscious, you could call that the deep state of being, and you can't see it. Just like on the outside, you can't see it. It's hidden. And what is in the depths of most people is unresolved issues. It's pain, it's suffering, because it's a traumatic society. It's a traumatic world. It's a world that has lost a lot of love and wisdom. So in that, a lot of trauma happens. Trauma creates something like a shadow, a darkness inside of people that is unresolved. And hence, the shadow, the darkness deep inside of people, begins to govern the mente, the mind, govern the mind. So now the shadows are governing the mind, and that is the deep state. This is the symbolic language that is being used because we're trying to tell ourselves something here. We're trying to tell ourselves the bigger story of what we're in. Let's move forward here. Do you know these phrases? We're all one, so there's no point in focusing on injustice. The universe will take care of it. You just have to trust. Raise your, or God, let's just say God will take care of it. You just have to trust. Raise your vibration and everything will fall into place. Everything is perfect as it is. Or let's not focus on the past. We're here to move forward. Anger is a low vibration. I don't allow that in my life. If you were more spiritually evolved, this wouldn't bother you. This is just part of the divine plan for your soul's growth. If you were in alignment, this wouldn't be happening. You know these phrases? So the thing is, I am being somewhat cynical with this. And while in all of these phrases, if put in a proper context and looked at them from a proper perspective, there's truth. But you can't pull one line out of a whole body of teaching and then just say, well, this is what I love. This is how I see it. This is what we're going to do. It doesn't work like that. You cannot bypass the healing section, which is acknowledging the truth of what is. And this seems to be the greatest challenge of our time. And do you know how vigilantly these dark forces, inverted forces, have worked to put these thoughts out for us to believe them? That we don't look. Do you think it serves them if we don't look? Or do you think it serves them, or it serves us if we don't look, or it serves them if we don't look? It serves them if we don't look. If we don't focus on all the incredible crimes that are being committed against the human family, it doesn't serve us, it serves them. It's always been this way. So do you think it's hard for them to put out books and spiritual teachings that tell you it's not good to focus on the negative? You really shouldn't be focusing on that stuff. We have not been focusing, and here we are, and we are still passengers rather than captains. We're still on the passenger side of things rather than steering the ship ourselves. This is still the dominant mode of life on Earth today. If it wasn't, if people were actually the captains of their own lives, if people were actually in charge of their consciousness, in charge of their subconsciousness, in charge of their beliefs and actions, then we would see a complete course correction on every level of life. But we are not. We're moving steadfast in the same direction under a new captain, under a new flag, if you will, a little bit of a different team. Flavor's a little different. It's going to feel more familiar than it did over the last 4 years for a lot of you. It's going to sound and feel and taste and smell a lot like patriotism, or we're cleaning up, but it is following the same blueprint and the same plan. How can I say? Well, I've been studying this. We've been studying this for a quarter of a century, at least. And what we were able to see in early 2020 or late 2019, people were not able to see because they didn't study it. So they thought we're just crazy. How were we able to say, listen, what they're going to talk about and what's going to be the most important issue of the next years is going to be this here, before they even started mentioning it? How did we know? How did we know to tell people, whatever you do, don't do that? This is the plan. And you know what they told us? Why are you talking about things that are not even here yet? Like, this has not even happened yet. Scientists and doctors are still working on this. Like, they're doing the best they can, which is the naive, uneducated view of things. And I'm not blaming anyone. They just weren't paying attention. And so we were fighting that uphill battle. And then people literally stood in line to get it. And it's their own responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility, because no one actually, at least not in the Western countries or a lot of countries, no one came and put a gun to anyone's head. It might have been different in some countries, but in most countries of the world, that wasn't the case. Yes, people were very uncomfortable, put in very uncomfortable situations. Yes, they were socially pressured. They were pressured through their jobs. They were pressured through their families. Yes, there was a lot of pressure, don't get me wrong, but nobody put a gun to anyone's head. But we had that information ahead of time. Now that ship has sailed. That ship has sailed. The consequences are in full action. There's very little at this point. There are some things that can be done about it, but for a lot of people, the ultimate consequence has already happened. So we can now pretend that all we have to do is chant and meditate, which I think is a wonderful thing to do, or we actually have some active things to do. We actually have some active decisions to make. We actually have to confront the shadows and the darkness inside of us, because unless we lift that, and unless we heal that, and unless we become whole, I sound like a broken record, but that is the task of our time. The alternative is that we don't do that. And at best, if we don't do that, the best that we can hope for is a massive conflict that we might not win. But that's the best that we can hope for if we don't confront our shadows, because we won't be able to move above a certain level of consciousness, above a certain level of problem solving and creativity, if we are held down by our shadows, just like a hot air balloon is held down by the ropes. Unless you cut the rope, hot air balloon is not going anywhere. Our heaviness, our darkness, our shadows, our unhealed issues are what is holding us back. That's what these forces know. So they keep causing enough situations for us to continually accumulate trauma. The adult human being needs to face that. You know, there's this wonderful psychoanalyst and spiritual mystic. Most people don't see him as that, but he was Carl Jung. He had some very important things to say about life. Where your fear is, there is your task, not tax. I did well on that misspell here. Where your fear is, there is your task. What does that mean? What do most people do? They try and avoid the things that they fear. They're avoiding to look at what is fearful, which is a fearful response in itself. So, do at least one thing a day that scares you. Overcome, walk through it, face it, because that is the only way. Otherwise, those fears, they're like seeds on fertile ground, and they will sprout and they will grow. And so a tiny seed of fear will grow into a tree of horror if it is not properly faced. This is what seeds do. You can plant good seeds or you can plant the bad seeds. Fear, not a good seed to plant. And most people have it inside of them and they're not willing to face it. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So a lot of people don't understand is that because something is unconscious, usually it means you cannot see it. So you don't know it is shaping your life. It is shaping the outcomes. How do I know? It is personal experience. After you walk down the same fucking road 10 times and you hit the same pothole and and every time it hurts a little more, you start thinking about, hold on, is there something that is guiding me down the same road over and over again? Does it actually benefit me? Is the outcome good? Is the journey good? Is anything about it good? No? Well, what is it that is guiding me? Chances are a deeply rooted program in my subconsciousness, usually caused by some painful experience that I buried so deeply I cannot see it. This is how 99% of humanity functions. Trauma-based responses. They think they're in charge of their actions, in charge of their thoughts, but they're not. Their subconscious is a program that is doing certain things to avoid certain things. It's not creative anymore. It's not life-affirming. It's not happy. It is the sole task is to prevent you from experiencing certain things again. Ironically, oftentimes leading to similar experiences. So, unless we make it seen and visible through the tools that we so often share, the journey process, family constellation therapy, things like that, and there are other really good modalities that help people with that. Unless we do that, we cannot face the challenges that we have around us. I'm not what happened to me. I'm what I choose to become. You know what a powerful shift in thinking that is? We have for so long lived the programs that were created by someone else long before us, and we have conditioned ourselves to fit the mold in one way or another to somehow make ourselves fit that program, because they taught us that's what it is. That's how it works. 9 to 5, pay the taxes, fill out the forms, retire, smile, die. In a nutshell. But just because something directed our life until this point doesn't mean that it has to be this way moving forward. We're doomed to repeat history, our own personal history, over and over again, and doomed to repeat history collectively over and over again unless we choose to become something else. And right now, that's what they're telling us. They're telling us we won't repeat history if we choose to become something else, physically speaking. I'm saying that we need to repent in a non-religious way, simply meaning changing our hearts and minds and seeing the errors of our ways of thinking and doing things, because they are our errors of thinking and doing things. The way we have been thinking led us to here, the way we have been reacting. So we need to change. These things will not magically disappear. The saviors out there are on board with these things. They're not opposing them. That should be clear by now. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do, right? How often have you told yourself, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to change things, only to find yourself in the same habitual pattern over and over again? So here's the thing. Most people choose 5 things at the same time they want to change. Choose one. Stick to that. And if it is really hard, find out why it's really hard. What belief, what thoughts, what previous program is keeping you from making that change? Christine and I have worked with a lot of people, and she's worked one-on-one with hundreds of people that were in all kinds of careers, from professional athletes to doctors and nurses and all other people you could possibly imagine. And over and over and over and over again, she has seen what happens when people, 1, confront their shadows and heal them, 2, make new choices, literally choose to become who they always knew they could be. And what is most significant is what is the result of those inner changes is that those changes started to reflect in their outer reality. So their lives started to finally change and move in the direction that they always wanted to. You can't push and pull and manipulate reality simply by changing external factors. You have to start here. And this is the greatest challenge for most people, either because they don't want to, because they don't think it's necessary, or mostly because they think it can't be that simple. It can't be that simple. That the greatest problems of my life are actually inside of me. Because it was this or that person who made me that way. Because it was this or that person who hurt me, who abused me, who, yes, and you're not wrong in saying that if that's what happened, yes. We're not responsible for the abuse that happened to us. I know that. But whether we like it or not, we are responsible for healing the trauma and the effects that abuse created. Because no one else can do it. We can only seek help in it, but no one else can do it for us. We have to be willing to do it ourselves. That's when we step from victim, from a life that feels like a leaf in the wind, to a powerful co-creator. It's like for the first time you see the empty canvas that represents your life, and you start painting on that canvas whatever you like. And that is possible. That is literally how this works. But when the canvas is full of stuff that's already on there, what are you going to paint? Where are you going to paint? No, we really need to acknowledge this, that as true as all the horrific crimes against the human family, as true as that is, we are responsible for the healing, and only we. Can't be any other way. Kathy O'Brien, our dear friend. If you don't know her, look her up. She wrote Transformation of America. She wrote PTSD, A Time to Heal. She was a Project Monarch, MK Ultra slave, literally, pretty much since birth. And she made it out. And she is the epitome of healing and what can happen when humans assume full responsibility for the entirety of what their life is, for everything, every aspect. It's incredible. She's a true inspiration to whole generations of people. That's what true inspiration is. The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you. The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you. And this is what has been happening for eons now. So, we cannot ignore the programs that are playing out all around us and pretend that they will not affect us. That is not the way that it goes. What I am saying or proposing is that these programs ultimately are a feedback loop and are a reflection of our unhealed spirits and our unhealed souls and psyches. That if we do that work, our consciousness goes up, our consciousness levels go up, what we literally send out energetically into the realm, our thoughts change, our beliefs change, our interactions, our relationships, our hearts, our minds, everything begins to change. And hence, the reflection of that in our world must begin to change. But it doesn't work if we don't face the truth. The truth is the highest religion. The truth is the highest religion. It's always been that way. It's the highest form of consciousness is to live with truth, but not just the convenient ones, not just the ones that make you feel good, not just the truth that elevates your spirit. All truth is truth. And like I said, if we had truly made changes since what happened in 2020, 21, 22, well, then the entities, the organizations, the people that were fundamentally involved in it wouldn't be influential any longer, wouldn't be in positions of power any longer. But they are. They're still there. The companies are still there. They're still doing it. No one was held accountable. And there are no plans to hold them accountable. So, what has changed significantly? Nothing much yet. We're still in that trajectory. That's what I've been saying. People don't like me saying that. People want me to change it. People want me to give them the optimistic take. But that's what I just did. I can't give you a more optimistic take than saying that everything that you could possibly want to experience, be, have, do is locked inside of you and you can unlock it. What could be more optimistic than that? Rather than hoping that another human being or other human beings who you've never met, who you don't know, you haven't been with them, you don't know their convictions, their traumas, their fears, you don't know them, other than putting your hope that whatever's not working out here, they will be able to fix. That to me is the most defeatist. That to me is like, that is pessimism at its best, because I'm putting all my hopes, I'm literally betting on all of the people but myself. And this is what's been taken from most people, is the faith in yourself. And you've been called, people have been called what's the word, blasphemous for that. People have said that you shouldn't believe in yourself. You should only believe in God. You should only believe in the Creator. Well, you know, that's one thing that, for example, my dad, who within this realm had a big hand in my creation, so I could see him as part of the creation chain, right? Well, he taught me that. He taught me to believe in myself. He taught me to believe in myself, especially when it was difficult. That, you know, as part of the creator chain, he knew he had instilled that in me. And so that seems to be a very healthy way of looking at things. That if you look at the grand creator, God, to say that how I express my knowing, my faith in that grand creator is by believing in the creator's creation. Makes total sense, doesn't it? So we empower ourselves finally. And what the results of that be, you cannot know yet. You simply can't. You see, when people see photos and images of faraway places, they've never been to the ocean. I met a lady once many years ago in a remote village in Switzerland that she hadn't really left. She'd been maybe within the radius of 100 miles, maybe tops. And she had lived a good normal life, had children, ran a few apartments there that she rented out and whatnot. And she told me that she'd never been to the ocean. And I couldn't believe it, right? Because it's not that far. Switzerland's not that far from the Mediterranean. It's not that far to go. She'd never been. And we talked about it. And I said, I grew up around the ocean. I was a lot on boats and just how beautiful it was. And I could tell that she was really interested in learning about it, but also that she couldn't really know what that meant. Then I met her again the next summer when we were there. And in the meantime, she had been to the ocean. And she had said, I just couldn't have imagined it. I couldn't have imagined just how beautiful it is to walk in the sand and have my feet in the water and oh my God, just like an open view and what it feels like to swim in it. And and the way she described it was because she had finally experienced something. And it doesn't matter how often you try to describe something to someone, unless they experience it, they can't really know what it's like. And so what happens on the other side of healing, or when we go on that healing journey, is it's not so much that we are learning all these new things, it's that we are unlocking what has been locked away, and we are unburdening, to quote Kamala Harris, unburdened by what has been. We're literally taking the weight off that has kept the hot air balloon down, and so we begin to soar as beings. And what we can achieve, what we can create, what we can accomplish is beyond imagination before it happens. You can't. You simply cannot imagine. You become someone else that was hidden inside of you. And most people, it saddens me to say, they live from cradle to grave without ever experiencing it. They live at 5% of their capacity, maybe 10. Not talking just about brain power, in general. So no amount of spiritual bypassing will help. No amount of false hope and savior addiction will help with that. And I'll stand, and we will stand for that, and we will become as unpopular as is necessary.
Really nasty emails.
We get nasty emails, nasty comments. I don't give a shit. Guess what popularity means to me? Not jack shit. But you know what means something to me? Human spirit. The spirit of truth. The spirit of love. The spirit of life. The spirit of creation. The spirit of freedom. That's what means something to me. That's what means everything to us. And if I look at my own journey, it was not freaking easy It's not easy to admit to yourself all the lies that you used to believe. It's not easy to admit to yourself that you have been deceiving yourself or have allowed yourself to be deceived. It's not easy to put false hopes, false programs, false beliefs to death, because that's what needs to happen. You need to release them and they need to die. That is not easy. It is a shedding process. It's a grieving process. It's a process of tears and freaking pain. And anyone who tells you it's all just unicorns and rainbows is a liar. They lie for a reason. No, it's not. You are getting out of the cocoon and you are actually birthing yourself in this life from all the bullshit that was attached to you before. Sometimes it's an incredible process and sometimes it's a painful process. Once the bulk of the healing is done, it gets much, much easier. And life actually becomes as beautiful as it can be. We really live a beautiful life. You know, I would have no reason to come on here every day and do what we do. Our life's wonderful. I could be on horseback. We could be out in the fields. We could be with the cows or with the chickens and lay in the grass and watch the chemtrails. Well, we could be doing that, right? But Spirit is guiding us to do just this here, okay? And I know there are people who needed to hear this, and I know there are people who will need to hear this, and we're just going to continually, we're going to talk about it until it hits a nerve. And there are a few things at work here. The 100th monkey effect is at work. That is literally what they're saying also about AI. Remember when they're saying that AI can replicate all that knowledge, and all of a sudden what one AI learns, it can duplicate and put into 10,000 other AIs? Well, guess where that principle is coming from? It's the quantum field principle. When enough people have a realization or make a quantum leap or a quantum jump in their development, the entirety of real humans will benefit from that, from the field. There's more than hope. But here's my optimism. I look at you all. I look at the people beyond our wonderful audience that are on similar pathways. That is the optimism. No government, no administration, no company. No, that's not where my focus is. They're going to do what they have been doing until we become who we were always destined to become. And then that game is over. Literally over. All right, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us once again. Always a pleasure. And we will be back with you again very, very soon. And right now, you could be only a few clicks away from experiencing something amazing, something that has changed thousands of lives all over the world. I'm talking about a high consciousness field similar to those at pilgrimage sites and sacred places. It's where people go to heal, to connect, and to become the best possible version of themselves. With FLFE, you can bring such a high consciousness field into your home right now. It's a spiritual quantum technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Better sleep, more energy, greater well-being, improved finances, electrosmog mitigation. These are only some of the things people on the FLFE service are experiencing. Try it now for 15 days completely free of charge, no credit card needed. Just click on a link down below to start your free, no strings attached FLFE trial right now.